Hello and welcome to The Point. We have a special guest this week, Ingo Ploger. He is the president of the Business Council of Latin America. Many thanks, sir, for joining us on this special program. First, let me ask you, how has this particular trip been for you since you came? Have you seen a change in the Indian attitude towards how to do trade with Latin America? Is there a change at all?
Yes, we can feel that you have a new attitude to Latin America. It's a new interest about Latin America. The Indian economy and the Indian politicians are looking more in the diversity of their exports and imports and also on investments. So it's not only Europe, it's not only US, not only China. Nowadays, Latin America comes on the spot.
And some people say that Latin America is a better bet for India now that Europe has got a cough because America has sneezed.
Well, it's good to hear that, but it's beginning to have a reality on that sense. Some entrepreneurs are coming to Latin America, as well as some Latin America's multi-Latinas are investing too in India.
So India also says, and this statement has just come a couple of days back, that India wants to expand the sea and air routes, trade links with Latin America, also negotiate more free trade agreements like with maybe Peru, even with Mexico. How important is opening more trade routes with the member countries of Latin America? Business-wise, trade-wise, how important is increasing and making better the connectivity by air and sea?
Trade brings more proximity for the people and for the benefit of the peoples. Closed economies has a situation where you can improve some issues in the internal side, but open economy is like the oxygen to breathe in a new dimension. That happens with Latin America, and it will happen also with India. We have some trades in the moment where we are beginning to strengthen, but we have enormous opportunity for both sides.
Experts in India believe that China has done a far better job in connecting via trade routes with Latin America than India has. And that is the reason why China has a better trade percentage with most Latin American countries. Do you think India now should take a page out of China's book and do the same?
I think India can make a difference, because the import of China from Latin America is mostly commodities, and export of China to Latin America is mostly technologies. So we have a trade with India also in both sides of technologies, and we can make a trade not only in commodities but also in technology. India has technology, Latin America has technology. For instance, we have airplanes and we could deliver airplanes. India has also machines, equipments, and ITs, products, where we can also absorb. So it could be in a different kind of models, like also the alternative energy.
Absolutely.
India is improving in the alternative energy, in the wind power energy, or solar energy now with a new solar policy that India is doing. That could be very interesting for Latin America too.
So do you think India, when it starts to expand their trade with Latin American countries, don't really have to follow the Chinese model, because we have something that China doesn't, and perhaps that could be our strength?
No, I don't think that you have to be a second India,
yeah, absolutely,
a second China. India has his own ways. India has his technology, has his know-where and know-how, and I suppose that we can find our roots. And there are some investments from both sides, but it's very important is India is an open society, it's a democracy.
It's a democracy, China is not.
And Latin America is a democracy. So we have a lot of issues where we are similar, and this similarity we should strengthen.
It's important, and it's interesting that you mentioned both are democracies. Most countries in Latin America are now democracies. But there was a period of political instability a while back, at least, and that's what most people think. Do you think that atmosphere has sort of changed now? It's more conducive to free trade agreements and trade between democracies around the world? How do you read the situation in Latin America now?
Without one country, Latin America is a democracy continent. And the strengths in the democracy involves insertion policies. Insertion policies bring up that you strengthen the middle class.
Right.
And the middle class has a new attitude about consumer. It's more conscious about consumer. They have a different kind of how to make the quality be present or not. We in Latin America has an insertion getting from the bottom to the up. So the poor...
It's bottom-top economy, not
top, not top-down like the Chinese model is, but we get from the bottom up. And that is a very interesting experience because we strengthen the consumer for the entrance products. So the people who has a little bit more money can buy more things that they need for the first consumer process. And that enhance middle class from bottom to up. And that, I think, is also happening in a certain circumstance in India. And that's different what we see, and it's also different from the concept.
Before we go into a break, sir, I want to ask you, like I said, there was a period of political instability there, but now things seems to have, taking a shape for the better. Is there any problem in any of the Latin American countries regarding the security of investments that perhaps that company might want to come in, threat to individuals or companies? Nothing of the sort, is there?
No, you have difference in some aspects and some of countries who are in a transforming situation, because in some areas you have sensitive areas like in
maybe Colombia,
petroleum, or no more Venezuela, I would say. But Venezuela is now in a voting situation, and they will have a change. So in the privatization area, that's a sensitive area where some countries are more reluctant than others. But if you see Latin America as a whole, it's the greatest privatization program in the world in the last 20 years. So you have a leadership on models of privatization and infrastructure. If you see the Panama Canal, it's a huge project, or project with ports, with airports, and so on. You have a wonderful airport here in Delhi. It's an example for us. So how to manage it, how to construct that, and so on, that we need. And you have also very good engineers in a lot of areas. And so that is a possibility where we can exchange students for the universities to learn from your models and our models.
Absolutely.
And we are a tolerant society. And you also.
Pretty much like India.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
we'll continue this conversation, Ingo, after a short breather. Lots more to talk with Ingo Ploger, but after the break, join us on the other side. Welcome back to our special program, To The Point. Ingo Ploger is still with us. Talking about trade between Latin American countries and India. Now, in 2000, the trade between all of the Latin American countries put together in India was barely 2 billion. Now we see it's a huge jump, about 30 billion US dollars. Now, that is a huge jump, no doubt, but experts in India believe that it's still far below potential that we could actually reach, or the growth we could see between India and Latin American countries. Do you share that view, that we've jumped, no doubt, but the potential is far more greater?
Absolutely, absolutely. If you see that what we are importing and exporting, mostly what we are exporting are commodities. So it's energy, it's petroleum, or it's oil, or so we can improve. We have a lot of diversified products, as you too, and we have in common some areas where we can improve. Look at the automotive situation. You have suppliers in the automotive side. That's very interesting.
And they supply to the whole world.
So why not for Brazil too?
Absolutely.
Yeah? And there are areas where we can share experiences, for instance, in the mobility of the cities. When I see the problems that we have in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, or Mexico with traffics, and the problem that you are facing in traffics. So how that needs a lot of systems about how to improve mobility inside. And there are areas where we have in common. And this pressure from the society to the politicians will increase in the next years.
As the population grows.
Yes, and if you see in the communication side, yeah, people are more connected, people have more interfaces, and so the faster up about information, what you are doing, what we are doing. So this kind of demand, we are more closely, and we can have similar solutions.
You know, I read somewhere today that the mobile connectivity in Latin America is pretty decent, in the sense that a 500 million population or a 600 million population has about 585 mobile connections. Now tell us a bit about that. Was it difficult to get that sort of mobile penetration going in all the countries? Has it been a good experience?
It was a fantastic experience. We have 600 million phones for 590 million people.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the experience was with the privatization. As we get in the privatization, then we increase the mobility situation. And we have more than 125 million people from these 500, 600. They are connected in social nets and with a long time. So people are looking and are talking and are connecting and moving for similar interests.
And a similar thing happened in India also. We also have sort of a mobile revolution going on. So it's a similar case in Latin America and India as well.
And that mobile situation also in the networking that harmonize some demands. People will become and know what to study, what to consume,
Absolutely.
what to get for services, difference, and have made comparison about prices, about possibilities. And that increase a velocity in the demand. And that is a typical situation of open societies.
Absolutely.
And open societies has a completely different dynamics. And that's where I think we have a very interesting chance about the both societies.
Talking about India's requirements now, India, the three most important items we import are: one, crude oil; two, food items; and perhaps then minerals as well. Now, Latin America, especially countries like Brazil, Argentina as well, they have that in abundance. They have the minerals, they have the food products as well. Now, because India's population is growing, and our demand is going to grow as well over the next 10 years, don't you think if we increase our import-export with Latin American countries, especially in food products, that could take care of our demand for the next 10 to 20 years? That seems to be a good idea, and it would help both sides as well.
Yes, I think that is an important issue, to have a demand on food, a demand also for feed, a demand for energy and minerals. But I see a higher demand. It's intelligent demand about solutions. If you see the diversification that you need for resources for energy, and energy in the different places in India, and if you see how Brazilian has solved that with ethanol, with biomass, or
non-conventional fuels.
No, not conventional fuels, not conventional fuels. And also with the solar energy, you have experience and become experienced with solar energy. We need experience with solar energy that is decentralized.
Absolutely.
And this kind of solution brings for the people immediately results, because if people have energy, you have a different situation of life.
Some Indian companies have already invested a lot in Latin American countries. I read somewhere the investment figure right now is $16 billion already in the past 5 to 10 years. Now, also I read that one of the top Indian sugar companies is one of the top 3 in Brazil right now. So it seems to me that Indian companies that have got a foothold in Latin American countries, especially Brazil, have been welcomed there.
Yes, absolutely. And the experience with sugar cane is very fascinating, because you have also sugarcane in India.
Absolutely.
And we produce 2 products. It's sugar and ethanol in the same mill. We can make the division. It's a flex production. So that could be also a solution in the future for India to produce alternative energy in the same area with the same product. And you have more people involved, because if you make a plantation about sugar cane, you need a lot of people.
Manpower, yes.
Manpower and not so much money. And if you drill petroleum, you'll need a lot of money, and you only need a few people.
Right.
So that is a concept where you have employment, and you involve people, and you are producing a sustainable energy.
It would increase efficiency, it would increase productivity, and that's what really any free market economy really wants. So what we'll do, Ingo, is take another short break. When we come back, I'd like to speak to you about what you see as the challenges between growth in trade between India and Latin American countries. But that's after a small break. Ingo Ploger and me will still have a chat after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're still in conversation with the president of the Latin American Business Council. Thank you so much, sir, for still talking to us. I want to touch upon, there was a statement made by Indian officials the other day that they want to double the trade between Latin American countries and India in the next 5 years. I want to ask you a two-pronged question. One, do you think that is a realistic target? And part B of that question is, officials here also say that trade with Latin America has been hampered by two things mainly. One is high tariffs. The other is port transport connectivity or connectivity in general. Now, India has pledged to double the trade in 5 years. Do you think it's realistic? And what other challenges do you think, besides high tariff and port transport connectivity, that could hamper trade growing between the two?
It could be realistic if you have a political motivation.
Political will.
And a political will. If this is in reality an objective from both sides, you can make it because you have the potentiality and you have the market for both. Second one, the issue about logistics of ports is absolutely necessary. We have to invest that. Brazil is investing in that, maybe a little bit slow, but I don't know how the possibilities are in India too. And that is also a market for both because you have engineers, you have civil construction, and that's not so difficult. You have also political will for both sides to do so. So if the politicians in parliaments and in governments see the possibility of that, they have to take the risk to get down with some barriers, because that is an issue where entrepreneurs can get into the market if the barriers are too high.
Right. Do you think the trade barriers, the tariffs are still high and they should be lowered?
Yes.
And that would, of course, help increase trade between the two?
Absolutely. And you don't need to make every barriers getting down. You can segment that. You can begin with one issue and get to another issue and to make this experience run. And when the confidence begins to get over by the political administration side for both sides, and also from the entrepreneur side, you will have investment from both sides and you will have welfare.
Also, the Indian government has announced some plans to ease visa restrictions. They want our national carrier, Air India, to fly direct flights to Panama. And you mentioned how important the Panama Canal is really. Also, free trade agreements we've talked about already with Peru and Mexico. What is your take on free trade agreements and the idea that our national carrier should go direct flights between Panama and India? Now, these are all very positive measures, provided they come through.
Well, you know, connectivity, and we are people who lives on the earth and not in the water, so we need airplanes to get from one point to another.
Or ships, for that matter.
Yes,
yeah.
But people like to be fast, and we need a direct connection, and we had in the moment a possibility to improve that.
Absolutely.
And we should improve.
A couple of more questions, Ingo. I've told you what the Indian government has pledged and promised and what they want to do. What can you tell us about initiatives and measures taken by the governments in Latin American countries, say Brazil, for example, or Argentina, or Peru, or Mexico, that they want to do from their side, which could perhaps increase trade and connectivity as well? Any initiatives that you can tell us about?
Yes. It's a strategical need that in the next years, with agreements that are in course between United States and European Union, where we know that they will move closer and not more insertive but exclusive, that we need. It's a strategical need between India and Latin America to go closer. Because if we don't do that, the others will do it for their interests.
And we will lose out.
Exactly. So we need it. And you can be sure that the entrepreneurship of the Latin American are pressuring their governments to get more and more in free trade agreements.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about the economies of Latin American countries. You know, in India, we faced challenges of growth. Our growth at some point was a double-digit growth, almost 9% and above. Now it's come down slightly to 5.6, 5.5%. The global slowdown has affected us as well. What is the situation in Latin America? How fast is Brazil going? If you could give us an idea. Is inflation a problem for you as well?
Well, in the first moment, Latin America will grow in the next 10 years between 4 to 6%.
That's a pretty healthy rate of growth. It's not excellent, but it's healthy.
Well, I read a number from the UNCTAD, and they said in a democracy, you have maybe 2 points less in GDP increase than in authoritarian regimes. For my preference, I don't want to grow very fast if I lose my democracy, if I lose my right of freedom. Or to talk and to communicate.
Absolutely.
So it's better to have 6% and be free and have an open society. That's my choice.
Absolutely.
And I suppose I'm talking about a lot of Brazilians and Latin Americans and also Indians.
Yeah, absolutely. So no problem with inflation then?
Well, we have a pressure over inflation, but the inflation is turning about between 4 to 5%. In Brazil, it's getting between 5 to 6%. It's an issue, yes, but it's very well dimensioned. We have the problem from the international side that the tsunami of monetary points that came from US and from Europe pressure our exchange rates to be evaluated, and we are losing competition with that. So our central banks are beginning also to put more money in the circulation, and that is inflation pressure.
Absolutely.
And we have to be aware about that, because that could be an issue to lose purchase power for our people, and we don't want
In India,
that.
we face a similar problem. Monetary tightening was on for about 18 months, and the Reserve Bank of India, which is our central bank, continued monetary tightening for a very long time. One last question I want to put to you, Ingo, before we let you go. Brazil and India are part of BRICS. Now, BRICS is a bloc that has come up gradually, but has come up very steadily, and it's one of the most important formations in the world right now, economically, politically, and otherwise. What role do you see, particularly India and Brazil, playing in strengthening BRICS over the next 5 to 10 years? Do you think cooperation has to be increased, not just trade-wise, but otherwise? And what is the outlook on BRICS?
Well, first of all, in the BRICS, the B of Brazil and the I of India and the S are maybe the most democracy
Absolutely.
and oldest democracy. Then it comes Russia, and Russia is driven by a high density of energy, and then comes China. So in the BRICS side, from the political issue, we have some differences. From the economy point of view, we are a pressure group. In the G20, we are a pressure group, and that's important to put it in a certain range, that we have also intentions to grow up, and our discussion in the BRICS should be the quality of growth.
Absolutely. That, of course, was the head of the Business Council of Latin America, Ingo Ploger. Many thanks for joining us on RSTV. That's all the time we have on To The Point today. We'll come back with a special guest next week. Thank you.